it's Stacy and welcome to my bookcase. In this video, I'm going to go through the books I read in October and either keep them or kick them. I might do more videos in this format in the future because I think it will help me keep my bookcase manageable. I live in an itty bitty apartment and unfortunately, I don't have room for a million books. I could put them in boxes and store them away until I get a bigger place, whenever that will be, but you know, books are heavy. So the thought of moving boxes and boxes of books hurts my back. So I think I'd better be sure the books that I'm moving are worth the pain. So I'm going to try and be more conscious of the books I put on my bookshelf. With that said, let's go through these October reads and see what's going to make the cut. First of all, Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice was an audiobook, so it doesn't take up any physical space on my bookshelf. If I had a physical copy of it though, I think I would kick it, even though I enjoyed the story overall. The reason I say this is because the story waned for me in the second half of the book, and I don't think that I would read it again. If you don't know, Interview with the Vampire is a book about a vampire giving his life story, or afterlife story, to a reporter who is recording it and asking some questions along the way. The next book I want to talk about is a collection of 2 novellas by Susan Hill, containing The Small Hand and Dolly. The Small Hand is about an antiquarian bookseller who finds an abandoned house with an elaborate overgrown garden, and while he's there, he feels a small hand grab onto his own, although he is the only one standing there. As the story continues, he has increasingly sinister, ghostly experiences. Dolly is about 2 young children who spend the summer at their aunt's Victorian mansion, and at that time, the niece has an explosive, aggressive reaction when gifted a doll for her birthday. And then the consequences of that night follow them into adulthood. I liked The Small Hand. It was a good story with a very good ending. I feel mixed about Dolly. The progression of the story felt strange. It took a while to get to the doll portion of it. These stories have made me interested in reading more of Susan Hill's work, but I didn't love them enough to want to keep them on my shelves or reread them at a later date. There wasn't any factor that wowed me or made them really stand out. The end of The Small Hand was certainly interesting, and that makes me want to read more of her works, but it wasn't enough for me to hold on to it. So I'm gonna kick it. Next is Mercy by Sarah Thompson, which follows a teenage girl who is doing research into her family history for a school project, specifically about an ancestor of hers, Mercy, who is suspected of being a vampire. This book I'm going to kick as well. It was an interesting story and I liked the twist at the end, but I'm not a huge fan of young adult literature, and the angst in this book was just a little too much for me. Next I have We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. This is about a pair of sisters and their uncle that live by themselves in a big mansion, years after the rest of their family died by poison. While it took me a little bit in the beginning to get into the story, I really enjoyed it, and I really liked reading from Mary Kat's perspective. I also own Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House, but I think if I had to choose between the two, I would pick this book. So yeah, I'm gonna keep it. After that, I read Sandman Slim by Richard Kadrey. If you watched my last reading vlog, you can probably guess what I'm going to do. This book is about a man who has just escaped from hell and who has returned to Earth to get revenge on the people who wronged him when he was last topside. While some aspects of this book were entertaining, there were many more aspects that I did not enjoy. Mostly the excessive dialogue and the brainless decisions of the main character. So I'm gonna kick it. Next up is Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. This book is about a boy who realizes that a mannequin has come to life and is going to kill him and all of his friends. But if you think you know what this book is going to be about, based on that description, then you are in for a ride. This book had me gasping in surprise, it had me flabbergasted, it had me floored. It's such a small book, but it packs a wicked punch, and I loved it. I love when a book can surprise me, and this one did. I'm definitely keeping it. The next story I read was the comic The Last Temptation by Neil Gaiman. This was a collaboration with the musician Alice Cooper, who released an album by the same title. This is about a boy, Stephen, who comes across a mysterious theater and is offered the opportunity to become a part of the theater, to stay there and never grow old. This was a good story and a good read for Halloween. I debated kicking it because it was good, but it wasn't great, but I'm inclined to keep it. I don't know why, but I feel less inclined to pass on comic books, maybe because I don't own as many of them, so I'm going to keep this for now. Next up is A Cosmology of Monsters by Sean Hamill. This book is about a family haunted by monsters, but the youngest son, Noah, is not afraid of the monster outside his window. Instead, they become friends. I really enjoyed this book. The characters were all complicated with plenty of issues, and it leaves you constantly guessing who's the bad guy, who is the real monster. And the answer at the end of the book is just perfect. It felt sort of poetic in a tragic way. I'm definitely keeping this, and I might see if the author has any other books out. The last book that I've read that I want to talk about is Japanese Ghost Stories by Lafcadio Hearn. This is a collection of ghost stories and legends that take place throughout Japanese history. I'm still not finished the whole book, but I only have about 40 pages left at this point. I'm definitely keeping this book because I love how Hearn writes, and I love that we get to see a glimpse of Japanese culture through these ghost stories. I'm definitely keeping it. Now for the end here, I'm going to quickly go over the books that I did not read because I'm going to be keeping and kicking a few here as well. My TBR shelf has gone from 2 shelves to 3 shelves in the past 2 months, so I really shouldn't be putting anything on there if I'm not sure I'm going to read them. First is Cujo by Stephen King. I actually read the first 30 pages of this book in October, but put it down when I realized it was about a dog that gets rabies. I didn't really want to read about that, no offense Stephen King, so that one is getting kicked. Now I said that I would be kicking a few, and I fully intended on kicking Bag of Bones by Stephen King and maybe Boy's Life by Robert McCannon, but after flipping through the pages, I can't make myself part with them yet. I'll also be keeping The Devil You Know by Mike Carey, mostly because I'm hoping it will be the story that I wanted to read when I picked up Sandman Slim, and then I'm also keeping Ghost Road Blues by Jonathan Mayberry, because I still want to know what is up with this Pennsylvania town. So there you have it. Out of the books I've read, I'm keeping 6 books and kicking 3, and out of the books I didn't get to, I'm keeping 4 and kicking 1. I think I'm making progress on my kicking skills, my decisiveness, but I've still got some progress to make. Let me know which books you think I should have kept or kicked. Were there any books among the ones I did not read that you think I shouldn't waste my time and precious bookshelf space on? Because that space is precious. Thank you for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more, please subscribe. And if you want to be notified when I post next, hit the bell. Have a nice day. Bye.